live streamed, so if anybody's mom is there, hi. And if you want colleagues to see it later, we will have it recorded, and those of you in the room that might have missed it, we will be posting them on youthpower.org. So without further ado, I will have our first lightning talk speaker come up. There's a clicker on the stage, and please leave it behind. Don't strand your friends behind you. So welcome.
I just have to pull spaghetti out of crevices. Good morning, everyone. I'm Steve DiPangrazio, an ICT for D, or Technology for Development Specialist at Save the Children. And what I'm going to talk to you about for the next couple of minutes is a mobile application called Do It that we built under our flagship urban youth employment program called Skills to Succeed. So Do It, which is slang for money in Bahasa Indonesian, was built as a way to help adolescent girls with financial literacy skills and savings behavior, a need I think we can all agree on. But first, I want to play a little game. And the game is called Two Truths and a Lie, and it should be pretty straightforward if you haven't heard of it before. I don't have a fancy voting system set up, which might be a failure for a technology specialist, but just when you hear the three points that I make, look at your neighbor and tell them which one you think is a lie. So first is that we collaborated with lots of other groups. Second is that the Do It application now sits in the vast ICT for D graveyard. Third is that we did absolutely everything that we should have while designing and developing it. So what do you think? Do It's not dead. And so now the story. In 2015, we started working with a South African organization, Prekel. Collaboratively, we created this foundational vision of the project, knowing that we both had an interest in mobile technologies. Then we started working with designers, developers, and various other contributors, including a famous singer and actress. It was really an impressive process. We ran focus groups to generate ideas. We created prototypes of the leading ideas. We tested the prototypes. We picked one. We refined it, tested it again, and then we kept building. That application was a hefty vision. It had a chatbot, trackable savings goals, and instructional content. Our research confirmed that the target users, who were our program beneficiaries, wanted to get better at saving money. They didn't have bank accounts or any other service that could help. They mostly owned smartphones, and they used them in their daily lives. They had no other solution that existed at the time that was right for them. So the application was developed, released, and then it just kind of didn't work right. It was too buggy, it didn't work on outdated operating systems, and all of the functionality required constant connectivity. Hitting the unpublished toggle on the Google Play Store, it really hurt. But we just didn't have a choice. Our goal had been to provide a helpful service to the users, and expecting them to spend time with a subpar application would have been an abuse of the trust that they put in us when they downloaded it. So this brings us to the lie, which is that we rebuilt it. The reality is, when you're talking about digital innovation, a lot of the time it won't play out exactly as you hope. But that's where we've found value in being patient, persistent, and pragmatic. The question I would ask is, how often is a 2.0 version included in your plans when you're building or trying something new? And if you had that luxury, what could you do with it? The next era of Do It is still consistent with the initial vision, but it's also shaped by actual user feedback and analytics. During the 4 months of its public life, Do It 1.0 had just under 4,000 users. From their use of the application, we found out that they prefer the chatbot and quizzes to the goal tracking. They need to be able to use it offline. There absolutely are different expectations and interests from one urban area to the next. To have this clear confidence just from one less than perfect release is actually a pretty great deal. So my parting words will be just a couple of general lessons for developing a mobile application for financial literacy. Make sure that the users care about the content. Make sure it makes sense to be mobile. Make sure that the features, what they're actually doing in it, are of interest. Be cautious about working with real money. It complicates things. And finally, make sure that you're nurturing it. When you're publishing a traditional toolkit or guide or whatever else, you're not just printing it, putting it on the shelves of a local library. When you publish a digital resource within an app store, should be given the exact same care. And if it doesn't work out, go to Merle Tech, learn about it, fix it, and then wrap up at a Fail Festival. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Moore. I'm the Director of Programs at the Trust for the Americas. No, this is not. This is yours?
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. My name is Mathilda, and I'm the Education Project Coordinator for Glasswing International in New York City. Today I'm going to talk about our cross-sector approach to implement our tailored, trauma-informed positive youth development programs in Central America as well as in New York City. Glasswing was founded in 2007 in El Salvador with the commitment to empower and improve the lives of the Salvadoran community. Because it is our roots, it continues to be our largest project site and continues to remain in El Salvador. We're a nonprofit organization that addresses the root cause of poverty, violence, and immigration through education, health, and community empowerment. We provide youth from high-risk communities with extracurricular, mentor-led, educational, enrichment, and vocational opportunities that develop their life skills and core competencies. We believe in fostering change by investing in a community's already existing resources, its infrastructure, and its people. In the past year, we have officially expanded our program to New York City, beginning with a partnership at International High School, a New York City public school that focuses on working with immigrant youth that have been in the U.S. for 4 years or less. Because Glasswing works with these youth in their home country, we believe that we bring value in working with these youth in New York City. Our students, both in the U.S. and abroad, represent a high proportion of the families experiencing economic instability, immigration trauma, and ambiguous loss, which consequently impedes their opportunity for academic success. Our programs focus on 4 main areas: academic enrichment, integrated communities, safe, healthy, and stimulating environment, and positive youth development. Our academic enrichment aspect focuses on increasing graduation rates and encouraging classroom participation. Our integrated communities is where our cross-sector approach lies, mobilizing all members of the community, teachers, students, parents, local businesses, local organization, local government. Our safe, healthy, and stimulating environment is by far our most important aspect. Working with youth in Central America that often come from oppressed societies and have a lot of distrust with the government, we provide them safe opportunities and safe spaces where they can become advocates for their own communities. We encourage them to become the experts in the communities because at Glasswing we know that they are. We give them a locus of control and encourage them to advocate for themselves and express their needs. Our positive youth development program is where our trauma-informed approach lies. Our community school model, it stems from the fact that we believe that anyone can be an effective agent of change within their own community. Through our community school model, we train and mobilize thousands of community members. Again, going back to our area of focus in integrated communities. We connect all sectors of society and capitalize on the community's existing strengths, creating a more integrated community. Our extreme school makeovers improve the physical infrastructure as well as the curriculum that is currently being addressed in the school. We consult with teachers, parents, and students as to what they would want to start seeing in their school. We encourage them to be active members in this change. We encourage them
to redevelop their curriculum and improve what they think is needed in their school. Our after-school programs are tailored to fit and address student needs in the context in whichever region they work in. We don't have a one-fits-all model approach. While we have the same mission in Central America as well as in New York City, we tailor every single extracurricular program and after-school program to the specific needs of that context. For example, in New York City, our students are not graduating because their English literacy rates are very low. Over 89% of the students that we work with in New York City are English language learners. Recently, Glasswing has implemented what we like to call a book club, where we read different books and different chapters of their books that they're currently reading, and we encourage them to bring in as well books in their native language or from the culture and give them that sense of familiarity. Our Some Smart Schools are partnerships with local companies and organizations in Central America and help address the need for 21st century skills in their after-school programming as well, where we tailor all of the after-school programs through individual tablets that every student will have. Thank you.
Now it's my turn. My name is Maria Moore. I'm the Programs Director at the Trust for the Americas, OIS. I want to tell you a little bit about what is democratizing innovation in the Americas. So this is our idea of our labs. So we have an innovation curricula with facilitators and guidance. We have a collaborative space, and we have a state-of-the-art technology. What we want to do is to provide young participants in vulnerable communities high impact, high quality, and low cost innovation solutions. This is our DIA lab in Jamaica, in Kingston, Jamaica, but it's focused in urban solutions. We have 2 more labs, one in Monterrey, Mexico, and it's focusing on accessibility for persons with disabilities, and we have one in Bogota, Colombia, focusing on the peace process. Let me tell you a little bit more about what we're doing in Jamaica. So one of these ladies is Carrie Ann. She's 29 years old, and this is her team. They went to the DIA lab, and they wanted to learn what it was this about innovation. So let me take you to her story by using the DIA methodology. So this is her methodology. So the Dream Hub. So Carrie Ann was able to go to an ideathon. It's like a hackathon, but we call it ideathon. We like more that name. And they were able to say, okay, what are the problems of what we identified in our communities? She lives in a really poor neighborhood in Kingston, and she says, and her teammates say, oh, what we need to target is like there's a lot of pollution and garbage in our community. The few public spaces are really in bad shape. They smell bad. We want to do something about this. So they came out with many ideas, more than 100 ideas together. So then they went to the second stage, the Shape Hub. What they did in the Shape Hub is they took all these ideas and go to an idea accelerator and mainstreaming process to come up with innovations. So they come up with one innovation. They wanted to focus in their entrepreneurship venture, a social venture called Plasticity. So what they did is they were able, with the support of facilitators, to create a business plan and start designing that business plan. Then they went to the third stage, the Make Hub. What they really want to do in the Make Hub is really test the technologies that they have in the lab. So what they did is they took plastic trash from the community, all tires from cars and trucks, and they start using the laser cutter and the 3D printer to print bracelets, earrings, and then to design trash cans for their community. So it was really fun for them. Then they went to the Link Hub. What they learned here is how to pitch their idea and this business idea. And they went to a panelist of experts in innovation and entrepreneurship. They got feedback, and they were in the top winners of this pitch tank. Then is the Venture Hub. Without it, this doesn't happen. So they received a seed fund, and they needed to choose one thing they wanted to do about their business idea. So they decided that they wanted to invest the money and the time in creating an application, a mobile application and a web application, to sell the bracelets and earrings, but at the same time to identify and get youth connected so where they can place the trash cans in their community and an awareness campaign. So they decide to do that. Right now, they're selling their products and they're having a mentorship program with some of the companies and mentors in those companies so that they can keep growing their business. This is our impact. We have impacted and empowered through training more than 3,000 people in Latin America and the Caribbean, 600 in Jamaica. They have created more than 158 innovation projects, and 72 of those have been funded. We are now opening some of the labs and innovation labs in Belize and Costa Rica, and this is our findings. So we have seen that a lot of kids from ages 15 to 25, they really like to go to the lab. They're really spending their spare time doing and finding solutions. And more women are participating, and they're more collaborative than kids. So we're trying to bring more young men to collaborate in groups with women and make it more inclusive. And the majority of the innovations have been in service and incremental innovation. It means that they have a service and they're trying to make it more innovative. So if you want to learn more about what we're doing with the methodology, or you want to implement it in another country, in another region, my colleagues and I are here the whole day to give you more information about it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Claudia. I'm the Manager of Education Technology at Creative Associates International. And today I want to talk a little bit about one of the recent big hypes in youth activities and education and so forth, even though I suppose this is going to be supplanted by putting youth activities on the blockchain now. I want to talk a little less about the specific project that I did, even though I'm going to quickly mention it, but more so about a little glimpse of why people have gotten so excited about getting used to code or teaching programming to kids. So this is just the last iteration of what I did, working with youth and teachers on teaching programming to youth in a program that we have in the Eastern Caribbean. It's a USAID-funded program and aims mainly at violence reduction through activities in school, increasing engagement of children in after-school activities and so forth. So the project looked to bring coding into schools, which is a relatively vague term. If you think about it, it's unclear what language do you want to do it, what do you want to do it for, whom do you want to do it for, and so forth. So we had to narrow it down a bit. What we also found is that the students that were going to benefit from this program are very diverse in age, between 11 and 17 years old, therefore also very varying in grade level, socioeconomic background, all of these kind of things, and lastly also their IT skill and the classes that they take. The same or similar things apply for the teachers themselves, which we worked with teachers that only taught French and physical education to teachers that actually do teach IT classes. So we had to find something that had a very low threshold, if you will, and a high ceiling, which means a very low barrier to entry for people who do not have any experience in coding, but that gives you the opportunity to really build a lot on top of it. And that was also highly engaging and very easily accessible for teachers. So what I decided to settle on is maybe the most intuitive kit and solutions to this is the Lego Mindstorms kit. It's a Lego product that runs on what we call a block-based programming language. I'm going to explain what that is in a second. And an added benefit is that there's a huge reservoir of curricula, learning materials, and so forth that really allows teachers to run on it with their own once the training is over. Now, this is a very typical low-threshold task for a robot that you can give to kids or to teachers to figure out by themselves. You have a black line on the floor. You have a robot that has a light sensor that's capable of detecting the intensity of light. So it gives you a low value looking at black light or a black color, and a high value looking at white because that reflects more light. So you can code this in different ways. There's a way you can code this in Python on the right, which is a standard programming language, and looks to most of you who do not know any programming, probably a little bit daunting at first glance. And on the left is almost the same expression in the Lego block-based programming language. I'm going to try and walk you through this. I don't know if the pointer is working. It's not. So I'm just going to point this out. So what you see on the left is think of it, the robot goes through these blocks from left to right. Thank you. On the left, the orange block, there is a little smaller than sign and a 15, if you see that. So what it does, the robot checks for any light value that is lower than 15. Now, if the light value that it sees with the light sensor is lower than 15, it follows the command that is up, the upper green block, which means it veers to the right. You see the little arrow, and if it's not higher than if it's not lower than 15, it veers to the left. So depending on what it sees, it veers in different directions, and it continues that forever with the infinity sign. So you put an if-then statement within a loop in programming language. What it looks like is, can we play this? Quite simple. That's the line follower. So what I hope I could show you a little bit with this is that the applicability of coding skills to wider sets of problems, which is you break down complex problems, make a robot move in a certain way, into articulated specific commands and translate this abstract solution into an engineering solution, both the building of the robot and the actual coding of the commands. And then you observe the outcome here. Okay, it moves along the line, but maybe we can do it more precisely. Maybe we can articulate more precisely, and then you rinse and repeat and improve upon it. And I hope that it makes sense for you looking at it this way, that these skills are highly transferable to other areas of your life as well. And I'm going to leave you with this. Thank you.
Good morning. All right, pleasure to be here. My name is Kyle Dietrich. I work for Equal Access International. I manage our global peace building and what we call transforming extremism portfolio with programs in about 12 countries. So my lightning talk is a little bit more conceptual and philosophical because I work in a space for the past 15 years of peace building, and everybody knows what PYD is. Does everybody know what CVE is? This very topical agenda, countering violent extremism. And so we were fortunate, our organization, to get a research grant from YouthPower Learning and to do some interesting research that started about a year and a half ago with some of our work in northern Nigeria. And so we look at, for example, the current state of the conflict in northern Nigeria and how, like a lot of conflicts, can we begin to talk about rehabilitation, reintegration of young people if we continue to dehumanize young people. And so we did a lot of research to prepare for some radio programming, some television programming, and a lot of youth development work. And one of the big findings that came out was that we have to reframe how we talk about radicalization. And for me, this makes a lot of sense because we talk about positive youth development and all individuals have assets that need to be leveraged and channeled, but we don't necessarily use this perspective when we talk about CVE. Right? CVE as a field and a construct looks at young people based on their risk and based on the threats that they pose to society. PYD talks about young people in terms of the assets and the potential contributions that they can make. And so how can these two fields coexist if one of them is deficit-based and one of them is asset-based? And so we got this grant. We did some research with a report that came out a few months ago. And we essentially came up with a construct that empowerment and radicalization are two sides of the same coin. They follow very similar processes in terms of the social psychological constructs, the need for self-actualization. These are two pathways that people choose to self-actualize. And so how can we step back, again, and reframe radicalization and reorient it for pro-social outcomes? And so we, after the first phase of this sort of more conceptual research with neuroscientists and social psychologists to really look at the different stages of empowerment and the stages of radicalization, we call it the radicalization journey, from engagement to what keeps somebody in a group, an armed opposition group or an extremist group, what influences them to disengage from the group, and what keeps them from re-engaging longer term. We saw a lot of missed opportunities, and I think one of the biggest challenges comes with our language, right? We talk about terrorism and extremism in really stigmatizing and dehumanizing ways. And it's unfortunate because when you look at conflict and the state of conflict in our world, this kind of conflict is not a mutation. It is an inherent part of the human experience, and if we don't begin to recognize the grievances but also the potential embedded within societies where individuals choose these counter-normative pathways like radicalization or extremism, then we're going to continue to miss opportunities, right? And so what we did is we interviewed 22 ideologically aligned members of Boko Haram in northern Nigeria, and that took months and months to identify them because a lot of people that are members of Boko Haram are coerced or forced into joining, and that was less our interests. We were more focused on those that joined under the age of 18, women as well as men, and that were ideologically aligned, and to get a sense of their radicalization journey. What were the impulses in terms of the brain, the social, kind of the environment, individual influences that caused people to engage and disengage. And so what we did in a report that's going to come out in the next week or so is we began to map onto this radicalization journey different potential interventions, or what we call off-ramps, right? If they have this potential, how can we leverage that potential? Because there are a lot of assets embedded within a radicalized individual: agency, self-efficacy, leadership, commitment, that we just simply don't understand because we kind of put these individuals in a mystical category and we leave them to be dealt with by the military. And we as youth specialists have a responsibility. Clearly there are ethical and legal challenges to direct engagement, but we need to find better answers to how we not just try to prevent violence, but we directly engage with these individuals with these asset-based approaches to create off-ramps and alternative pathways, so that they don't just reintegrate into society, but they reintegrate in an empowered way. I'm going to stop there because of time. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thanks a lot for the youth panel was great, and the other speakers. Thank you. My name is Gregor Young. I'm an M&E specialist with RTI's Governance and Economic Development Division. I'd like to share with you today a new tool we're using to engage vocational training centers, VTCs, I'm going to use that term, VTCs for youth, called the Quality Assurance Framework, or QAF. QAF is a guided self-assessment which supports stakeholder-driven improvement for vocational education. I've been working with my colleague Peter Joyce, who's in the room, on this tool for a little over a year. We're implementing in 2 countries, Kenya and Indonesia. What you'll see today is the measurement component of a robust VTC capacity development approach focused on sustainability and self-reliance that also includes training, coaching, workshops. The context is familiar to this group. We're working to help create gainful employment opportunities for youth who are low-skilled and typically have few opportunities to engage the formal sector. This means for us working with VTCs and in particular building their own capacity to understand how they're performing and improve with youth as indirect beneficiaries of that process. So our response is to provide an evidence-based self-assessment for VTCs with appropriate content for them. We need the approach to be owned by stakeholders. We need VTCs oftentimes to understand they need to provide more comprehensive services, including sometimes bolstering basic education and skills, and we need the approach to be scalable. So this is a view of RTI's QAF tool. The QAF is an index with 5 dimensions reflecting the core functions of a VTC. Those are leadership, operations, learning and teaching, partnerships, and equity and access. Each of these dimensions has a number of sub-components. We've tailored this to address issues which affect youth employment outcomes with variables including pedagogy, curricula, private sector linkages, student supports, and others. And the VTCs are scored on a range between 0 and 4, Higher scores are better scores. A sustaining score is meant to reflect international best practice, is somewhat aspirational. And using this tool, we can track change over time. As I said, there are 2 RTI projects using the QAF at this stage, the Kenya Youth Employment and Skills Program, KYES, and the Indonesia Ready to Work Accelerator Program, RWAP. QAF rolls out slightly differently in each of these countries and projects, but the core activity is the same. So in Kenya, we're using a mobile data collection platform called Magpie. Data are collected during routine site visits with the key VTC faculty and staff, and other stakeholders may be included. What you're seeing here are questions under the QAF leadership dimension, so sub-questions under one of the 5 components of the index. There are a range of response options with specific quality criteria for each, corresponding then to a numeric score. I think mobile data collection has real advantages if used in the right context, and this is one of those. The scoring data also need to be backed up with evidence of change and effort undertaken by the VTC. So we ask our enumerators to include comments during scoring to justify their data, which you can see are in the far right column here. Simple as. When we get the data, there's quite a lot that we can do with it. What you're seeing here are baseline data from 12 VTCs in Kenya taken in the spring of this year. You can see they range greatly in their starting capacities, with some low performers and some higher performers, but none above even the advancing level of this index. So bear in mind, these are self-scored results. And since we get subscores for all the QAF dimensions, we can also show in what areas our beneficiaries are doing relatively well or poorly. These data reflect the same Kenyan group. You can see they're relatively strongest in learning and teaching, and the weakest in their operations and equity and access area. So knowing this type of information helps us to engage the VTC partners and help them prioritize areas for improvement. So we're still adapting this tool. I expect changes to be ongoing. It's our hope to spread this model to more non-treatment VTCs where we work and obtain more widespread buy-in from local governments and ministries of education and labor. Thanks very much for your attention. I'll talk to you at lunch.
Okay, I'm standing between you and your lunch, so sorry. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Meredith Pierce. I'm a policy analyst working at Population Reference Bureau. I'm excited to share with you a project and a partnership that engages and empowers youth across a full continuum of research to advocacy activities in the field of youth reproductive health and family planning. So the Empowering Evidence-Driven Advocacy Project brings together the strengths of 2 pretty different organizations, PRB and the International Youth Alliance for Family Planning. So PRB was founded in 1929. We are not ourselves an advocacy organization. We inform people around the world about population health and the environment, including our World Pop data sheets, and we empower people to use this information to advance the well-being of current and future generations. IYAFP, or IY, is a youth-run network dedicated to supporting youth to learn about and advocate for family planning and sexual and reproductive health and rights. So it was founded in 2013 at the International Conference for Family Planning. They are an active community of youth across 80 countries. There aren't many professional settings that make me feel old until I found out that their leadership team ages out at age 30. Leading up to this project, PRB analyzed policies from 16 countries, and we found that many have a strong policy environment that guarantees youth access to contraception and to youth-friendly health services. So with IY, we set out to identify the gaps in implementing these existing policies in 6 of these countries and to look at how youth advocates can hold their governments accountable to implementing these policy promises. So we're working with IY Youth on a two-arm policy implementation assessment in each country. In the first arm, PRB and IY researchers conduct over 40 in-depth interviews with a range of stakeholders. So this is a classic top-down approach. In the second research arm, the IY research associates hold focus groups with 60 youth ages 15 to 24 to capture their experiences. So combining it with a bottom-up approach. So in this research phase, IY youth leaders are trained in key principles of research, and they take on a high level of responsibility in recruiting for the focus groups and working with local government to obtain the required permissions and with participants to obtain informed consent for their participation. So once all of this interview data is collected, we analyze and synthesize this data to identify the gaps in policy implementation. And then using this data, the IY youth in each country, they propose and they pitch several potential SMART advocacy objectives, and then they reach consensus on 2 objectives to pursue. They then create a work plan and they map out all the activities needed to achieve their advocacy objectives. In this phase, the youth leaders are trained in PRB's policy communication training to think strategically about their audience and their messaging and how to use data in a compelling way. Youth leaders and PRB then co-create fully customized communication products such as fact sheets, videos, and briefs to support their advocacy objectives. IY Youth design the products based on their intended policy audience, from the messaging to the graphics, and they provide detailed feedback on drafts of each product and work with videographers in country to capture footage and interviews for those videos. So we are just now entering the phase of the project where the youth leaders are moving ahead with their advocacy work plans using their communication products. But we are already seeing the impact of empowering youth advocates with the data and skills needed to advocate effectively to policymakers. So for example, one of our EDA advocates in Kenya met with the county governor and members of the county assembly in Bungoma County to discuss budget allocation for youth family planning. And after the meeting, the policymakers agreed to form a youth committee in the country to inform youth-related policy and budget decisions. So we're looking forward to sharing many more wins like this and to sharing future progress on this project with you all. Thank you.
Well, actually, Meredith, I'm the one that stands between everyone and lunch. But before we can break for lunch, we want to make lunch a productive time. We have some ideas about how you can do that. While you are welcome to socialize freely, we also have structured some opportunities to be able to meet some new people, to be able to connect with old friends. And so with that, I wanted to give you a little bit of a guide to what lunch looks like. And then we'll have a quick announcement right before lunch, and then you'll be free. So first I want to introduce what we have over lunch. We have round tables. The first on your schedule, it says 6. There's a schedule in your folder. But there's actually 7. We have a new addition. 7 young change makers to be able to meet with over lunch. So you notice that some of the tables are numbered. We tried to spread them out a little bit so things didn't get super noisy. So you met the first 4 this morning as part of the panel. So Lupai will be at table number 1 and hosting a discussion there. Danielle will be at table number 2. Yasmin at table number 3. Israel for table number 4. There are then 3 additional people you've not had the pleasure yet to meet, but here's your chance. First, we have Maria Alejandra Masokos, who is a program specialist for stabilization and development at Creative Associates International. And she's passionate about creating solutions on issues of global concern. And her recent experiences including interning at the Salzburg Global Seminar and working with the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee as a CHI-CI Public Policy Fellow. She will be at table number 5 over there. We have Abua Evbuoma, I hope I got that right, and forgive me if I didn't, is a trained physician with interests which intersect communications, human-centered design, data and policy for problem solving and global health. She's a 2018 Global Health Fellow and works and volunteers in ways that span health facilities, media houses, nonprofits, and design collectives. And her current work focuses on human-centered design with an emphasis around evidence review, publications, and implementation. It's a lot of things that we do in here. And our 7th and our new arrival will be at table 7 is Jose Daniel de las Fuentes Rodriguez from Mexico. He's an intern at the Young America's Business Trust, and he's part of the OAS. He's currently a finance student, and his projects are mainly focused on financial services and economic development in poor neighborhoods. In addition to having an opportunity to meet these young folks, we have 4 tables set up for each of our 4 communities of practice. And this will be a chance to be able to socialize with the communities of practice and have some discussions with the co-champs and meet with each other. So table 10 is the youth engagement community of practice, and now the 10's getting farther back for me. I think 10's back there. Table number 11 will be the youth in peace and security community of practice. Table number 12 will be gender and positive youth development, and table number 13 will be the cross-sectoral skills for youth. We also will have some posters in the back, and so you have a chance to be able to talk to people connected to those posters, and a chance to just talk with each other. So let me just make sure I have anything else for my notes here. We will resume at 1 o'clock. We will have lightning talks then. So my lightning talk speakers, the first 4 of you, I'd like you to come up, and there's some chairs over here by 12:58. And before we break, we have one quick announcement with Elizabeth. So thank you very much, and enjoy.